Hello, my name is E Loar. What I'm reading to you today is a chapter from a book I've written about my experience as the foreperson on a juried trial for one of the officers charged in the death of Freddie Gray. Freddie died in April of 2015. The trial took place in December of 2015. The van. Bundled in down and wool outerwear, our entourage wound down 2 flights of aging granite steps to the cavernous, gas-fumed garage in the bowels of the Baltimore District Courthouse. We 12 regular and 4 alternate jurors, Judge Williams, the prosecutors, the defense attorneys, a few deputy sheriffs, and the defendant, Officer William Porter, uttered not a word on our pilgrimage to view one of the trial's major pieces of evidence. A bitter chill seeped in through the uninsulated steel garage doors as we congregated on the concrete floor of the large open area. In the middle of the space, lit by harsh fluorescent overhead lights, hung from the 2-story high ceiling, a dented white police panel van sat, its rear doors flung wide. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, take as much time as you need to explore the van. Judge Williams gestured to the white vehicle. Feel free to touch walls, open doors, explore all aspects of this vehicle. The rest of us have spent time with the van before. We'll just be here to observe your investigations. My stomach turned as my eyes scanned the exterior of the vehicle. Seeing the van made Freddie Gray's death more real for me than any of the testimony, videos, or photos I had heard and seen during the 3 days I had sat through thus far in the jury box. This is where Freddie Gray had his last conscious thought. This is where Freddie Gray entered his coma. For an eternal minute, we jurors stood transfixed by the vehicle. No one moved. Then, like an amoeba, our cluster began shifting and changing shape, drifting toward the white machine before us. Eventually, most of my colleagues moved forward, many animatedly so. Jake was the first to touch the van. He leapt up on the rear bumper and bounced up and down, facing out toward the judge and the attorneys watching us. Then turning toward the chamber that held Freddie, he jumped more vehemently. Observing him, I wondered if he was thinking about Freddie, if he was thinking what Freddie's last conscious hour had been like in that dark space within those metal walls. I took a couple steps forward and inhaled a few long, deep breaths. Still, I was not ready to enter the van. Now standing no more than 2 or 3 meters behind the open back door, I could see Agnes get in the back of the vehicle and sit on the hard metal bench. She slowly slid her hands over its smooth, hard surface. What she did not do is lie down on the floor. She did not look at the world from the perspective that Freddie saw it that April morning in 2015. She did not close her eyes to simulate Freddie's last moments. Simon, one of the most taciturn of our jury, clambered into the driver's seat. He peered through the scratched plexiglass window between the front and back of our van. He tapped on the window and shook his head. I guessed he couldn't see anything through the damaged plastic, because Judge Williams had given the jury strict orders not to discuss any aspects of the case with each other until the prosecution and defense had finished presenting their cases. I could not ask him what he was thinking. I could only surmise what Simon's shaking head meant. With pen and pad in hand, Lily primly jotted down notes as she circled and circled the van. She lifted the handle on the right side double doors, but they would not budge. The judge must have seen her because he announced, "The side doors do not open." She emitted a little titter and gave him a sheepish grin. Someone exclaimed about the size of the compartment, another about the seatbelt. In time, the hubbub died down until only soft whispers wafted here and there. One by one, the remainder of the jurors entered and exited that fated space, all except me. Finally, I felt able to move, albeit haltingly, toward hallowed space, for I did feel that is what I was observing. To me, the back of that van was no less of a tomb than any cemetery's mausoleum. While I stood there, I offered a silent prayer of gratitude that Freddie's mother and sister and girlfriend and his friends Brandon and Devante and every single person who had ever loved him were not there watching us as we traipsed in and around his death cell. I could not make myself enter the compartment where Freddie's body had been. Instead, I stepped up on the back ledge and peered inside. My heart seized. A few moments later, it found its rhythm again. I extended my shaking right hand into the space, rubbed it over the corrugated floor, and then let it rest on that unforgiving surface. I wondered, how would I have felt lying on that floor, shackled, without the means to lift myself up and sit, without the means to shield myself from sudden stops and wild careening turns. I wondered if there had been enough light coming through the double back doors or the scratched plexiglass separating him and the driver, Officer Caesar Goodson, for Freddie to see that the floor was not gray, like his name, or not black, as some people call the color of his skin, but hard, steely silver, worn and scuffed like an old buffalo nickel. He would never walk out of that chamber. He would never move again on his own. He and Brandon and Devante would never stroll down North Avenue together again on that sunny Sunday morning. The last time he kissed his girlfriend would be the last time he would ever kiss her. The floor would be the last thing he would ever see. When I could no longer conceal my trembling hands, when those trembles moved up my arms and down my spine, and I felt unable to focus my eyes on the scene before me, I wrapped my arms in front of my chest, turned my back to the van, and stood apart from the rest of the assembled. While waiting in the bitter December air in the unheated courthouse garage, I took long, deep breaths to gain control of my quivering until we were permitted to return to the jury room. The wonder of my breath filled me with awe and gratitude. That was a wonder that had been taken from Freddie Gray. Judge Williams' sonorous voice broke the silence now filling the space. Unless one of you needs more time, we can return to the warmth of the building. For a minute, no one moved. Then with a sweep of his robed arm, the judge directed the assembled toward the hard cement steps at the far side of the garage. Instantly, my feet carried me to the top of the stairs before any of my fellow jurors could join me. Only when I returned to the jury room, opened the door to that closed space, and felt the rush of heated air on my face did my shaking begin to abate. Before me, I saw 16 empty chairs. 16 empty chairs and the potential that those of us here to fill them might offer justice to Freddie Gray.